Western civilization is moving closer to a point of irreconcilable, unstable equilibrium, as frighteningly increasing numbers of people trust nothing. Media, academia, and especially the governments are no longer held in high esteem. Regaining trust is often impossible after betrayal. However, transparency is essential to any healing process, and that is the essence of the Don Sullivan Show. Please listen to the team explore, probe, and debate cutting-edge science, technology, and computing. Play ball! Hello, folks, and once again, welcome to the Don Sullivan Show, the show where we talk about all things science, technology, and computing on a level that can be understood and absorbed and utilized by your average teenage student of the United States of America or Western civilization. We're having a lot of episodes and we're doing a lot of recordings these days. And of course, we keep this as broad as science, technology, and computing can possibly be. And today we're going to our core competency. We're going back to science, technology, and computing. Of course, you all know me as your favorite present day exile from Silicon Valley. It looks like I'm going to wind up going back relatively soon, but that's a story for another day. But today we're going to talk about enterprise resource planning, where it came from and where it's going. Very interesting aspects of this that I like to joke that I was born before the internet. I'm becoming a smaller and smaller class in that regard. That might be a bit of an exaggeration. I did work on a TRS-80 when I was in high school, but on a more specific point, I was definitely come of age professionally before I even knew what enterprise resource planning was. I actually sat in a lecture given by an executive from IBM in 1994 who talked about their frustration in not being able to buy a little German company named SAP. So that being said, today we're going to have a true SAP expert on. I would like to at least introduce you, and we'll get into some more details in a minute here, but I want to introduce you to Vas Mitra, who I worked with at VMware for a very long time. In fact, he was my partner in the VMware Experts program, the branch for SAP. And Vas is an overall fun guy, interesting, smart, and knows everything that we're going to want to know on this show about enterprise resource planning and SAP. So say hello to the crowd there, Vas.
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Vas. Thanks, Don, for the introduction.
Yes, Vas is obviously from across the pond, a big Beatles fan, and he's going to be on for other different shows in the future, which I will leave as a mystery, but they'll be a little bit more fun, I think, than SAP. But that's what we're talking about today. So Steven's here with us today. Jersey Steve, take it away.
I think SAP is fun. Well, in any case, greetings from the Garden State, everyone. Today's episode is brought to you by License Fortress, the industry's first and only software asset management firm to offer both a financial and legal guarantee at its highest level of service, whether it's Oracle, Microsoft, or VMware. License Fortress helps organizations stay compliant, avoid audits, and save money. Learn more at licensefortress.com. And please support our producer by visiting axtinc.com. That's AXTINK.com. Subscribe to his YouTube channel and help support his efforts to create humorous animation. And return that stolen briefcase of ransom money to Aspen, Colorado, in its dog-shaped van.
When did he get to go to Aspen? This guy travels more than I do. I don't get this. How does he work for us and travel with us?
He's an international man.
But we're going to have a show just on Bill's exploits. Okay, so
get to the bottom of that. Yeah.
All right. So, Stephen, as usual, I have to read out the waiver. Our ever-increasing team of lawyers is always nervous about this. So let me read the waiver out. All statements by the host and the guest on the Don Sullivan Show are the personal opinions of the host and the guest, who all agree that the following content is the property of Xanalytics LLC to be used publicly and exclusively on the Don Sullivan Show. And guess what? Once again, the audience can't see it, but everybody is shaking their heads in total agreement, which means we can go on and actually have the show. So let's start the show. Vas, let's get right into it here and tell the audience about how ERP sub-industry of computing world developed and in 2025, and specifically how SAP is doing. So where did it come from? How did anybody decide that they could run an entire enterprise on a single set or even one application? And then how did SAP ever figure that they could then tell you how to run your business on that application?
Well, I think historically with SAP, I mean, I'll be talking specifically about SAP because that's what I've been working on pretty much on and off, well, most of my time since 92. So ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, it's one big, huge accounting, sales order entry system, logistics system in one big database. And it traditionally started off as one big central database because SAP originally was an IBM mainframe based application called R2. And then
this is why IBM wanted to buy them in the early 90s, right? Yeah.
Yep. And then in 92, they went from a mainframe to a client server architecture. And that's when in the mid to late 90s, there was a lot of SAP being run on client server. Those installations would have been on, actually, Oracle was the database of choice back then, on HPUX, and all flavors of Unix on DEC Alpha, all that. That's another example, HPUX, and then Sun Microsystems. And
how about that, Steve? A mention of VMS in there. Holy cow.
Yep. I just remember that was one of the installations I worked on back in 94. And then that was back in the 90s. And then gradually in the 2000s, what happened? SAP made the decision to come up with their own database to compete with Oracle. That was HANA, an in-memory database. So then SAP started to move their ERP systems to run on HANA. And
is HANA an acronym, or is it somebody's name?
Yeah, High Performance Analytical Appliance, I think.
Oh, okay. There you go. Just for the audience.
I mean, I've used the acronym.
Very German.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But the idea is you run everything in memory. That's because the cost of memory went down and it was able to now put a lot of data in memory via compression algorithms. So, and that was all stuff that used to be running on-premise. Customers would buy the software and run it in their data centers. And then what's changed now is, as of 5 years ago, we've got cloud. So now when the SAP and ERP world, ERP vendors and SAP being one of the main ones, are now offering all their business suite of applications now in the cloud as a service, as a SaaS-based service. So they will deploy the application and the database, the operating system, and the hardware, along with their infrastructure partners. And they take responsibility for everything, and all the customer needs to do is configure the system and run the business. So that's the new business model from SAP. And that's what's been happening in the last few years. 2025, SAP's biggest revenue growth has been taking customers' systems and data and putting it into a SaaS-based service in SAP's cloud.
So by SaaS, you're referring to, just for the audience sake, as software as a service.
Software as a service.
So what the customer is paying for are the individual users, really, the licenses, the seats. Is that a term that
correct?
Term
number of users using the system. Yeah.
And not the software itself in terms of any physical properties running on their servers. They're paying for the usage, the functionality of that software in the cloud. Now, that's a perfect segue, because what I really want to know, Vas, is, so as SAP expanded, and I kind of know the answer to this because of our work in the VMware cloud, but as SAP expanded into the other hyperscalers, meaning major clouds, or is it much more in what is kind of metaphorically referred to the SAP cloud? And then what really is the SAP cloud?
Now, SAP cloud now generally first means the following. SAP cloud means it's basically SAP's business suite of applications offered as cloud-based services. That's what the general definition of SAP cloud is. But where it's actually running depends on the hyperscaler of choice. So SAP has now relationships with all the hyperscalers, the top ones being AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and now IBM. IBM has a cloud for SAP. And basically, SAP makes agreements with their customers when they decide to move their system.
Not Alibaba.
No, Alibaba's not yet, not for their core product. Right. So SAP's core ERP system, which runs on HANA, which is now called S4HANA, is offered as a cloud service in one of those 4 hyperscalers, the ones I just mentioned. And what happens when they have a discussion with the customer and the migration project starts, the customer signs an agreement with SAP, and the customer has the option to pick the hyperscaler of their choice. Because it's possible a customer might might be using one of the hyperscalers. It could be already using, say, Azure for non-SAP. So they might decide, okay, let me move my SAP to Azure, keep everything in the same cloud, same hyperscaler.
All right, so are all clouds equal in SAP's eyes, or all of those 4 hyperscalers?
They offer a set of services for their applications, their business suite. And they, as far as I know, they're offering the same service is provided in any of those 4 hyperscalers. Under the hood, of course, the technology side, it changes depending on the hyperscaler, but pretty much they're offering services, and that's the same.
The features change a lot per individual hyperscaler.
No, when it comes to the functional and business features, they're all the same. You're paying for a business feature, and it's going to be available no matter what cloud you run it on.
So the features are defined by SAP and not the underlying hyperscalers features.
The business features are defined by SAP. They're in control of the app. Now, when it comes to performance SLAs and high availability SLAs, networking, that's when the hyperscaler gets more involved. And that's all behind the scenes. So they just offer an SLA to the customer. The customer doesn't have to worry about the technology side. So that's the SaaS service. There's also options where customers are moving SAP as to the cloud, and they're in a infrastructure as a service model, where the customer still retains responsibility for some of the technology, the installing the software and the operating system, but the hyperscaler is responsible for the hardware and the CPU and storage, for example. But
that's usually the case, though, right? I mean, they're
right. But SAP's main offering now, what they've told their customers is your existing suite of applications that you run on-prem, they are end of life or end of maintenance 2027. And after 2027, you have to move. The roadmap is to adopt the cloud-based services, depending on the particular business module you're interested in, ERP or CRM, or is it HR? A lot of them.
So is that coincidental with the hard line in the sand to moving to HANA?
Correct.
Which, of course, really has the underlying implication of no more Oracle.
Yeah. So traditional SAP Business Suite can run. That's been running on-prem for the last 10 plus years. It's basically, an application tier called NetWeaver, and then the backend databases could be either Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, and even HANA. And now SAP is saying that version of the SAP Business Suite is end of maintenance 2027. You can purchase extended maintenance until 2030. But the goal is after 2027, they have to make plans to migrate their business to the cloud-based service. Now, some of these customers, depending on how big they are, there might be a big enterprise manufacturing company, or they could be all the top Fortune 100 run SAP. They might have their own agreements to run the SAP ERP system on-prem, but after 2027, it has to be on S4HANA.
So you're pretty sure
Interesting.
That's really the line in the sand. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, could they just run it with third-party support instead?
Yes. So that's a good question, and that's coming up. So the idea is the existing, the old legacy version of the SAP's ERP software is called ECC. I think that stands for Enterprise Core Component. ECC is the one that can run on Oracle, SQL Server, or even HANA. That's what's end of maintenance 2027. They can pay for extended maintenance, or there are some third-party companies who are willing to take over the support of those legacy systems, and a customer could sign a contract with that third-party company. I think one of them is called Rimini Street, I think.
Rimini Street is the support
Yeah,
organization.
Rimini Street.
Rimini,
yeah, they could do support.
Yeah. So that customer has that option, but they have to look at the cost of extended support, and they have to also look at the functionality. So for a lot of customers, they're happy with the existing functionality in the legacy system. They might say, I don't want to touch it. It works. But what SAP is offering is, if you want more improved business functionality based on AI, based on new digital transformation technologies, all that's available in the new version of the software, which is only available in the cloud.
Yeah, it's going to boil down to whether you're just happy with the way it is, or there's good business reasons for you to upgrade.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So the customer on the business side has to make the decision: what are the business benefits for moving to the new software? What is the business process and improvements that they need? Because SAP will say, look, we're not going to put in any enhancements to the legacy systems if you need this new enhanced business process by the latest version in the cloud. And I think one of the things that will be driving that is the SAP is now embedding AI into its normal transactions. So traditionally, you log into an old style GUI to say, I can speak to this one because I used to do some coding for it. Sales order entry in SAP, taking a sales order. They would use an old style GUI. There's an old style GUI that you can do that. There's a client server version of the GUI. There's a web-based version of a GUI. Now, the new versions of the software in the cloud might use a chatbot to take a user through sales order entry. So you talk to an AI chatbot and put in minimal information, and it will generate the sales order in the background through APIs.
Yeah, and for anyone listening that's younger that doesn't know what a GUI is, that's a graphical user interface.
Thank you.
That's the thing that you type into, basically, in an application.
We used to actually have to type the words in, kids, and actually put the commands in, as opposed to actually just
far more complicated than.
Yeah.
But then you couldn't just talk to it or have it guess what you want.
But then Xerox PARC gave Steve Jobs a free tour, and the rest is history.
Right. My son, he's 26 now. He came out of college at 22, so he knows all the new, everything's through mobile interface, web browser. He starts a job in manufacturing, and then he tells me, "Hey, Dad, these guys were using this SAP system." Oh, I say using that, and he goes, "How the hell do I log into it?" Because he tried logging into it using this old GUI, and that stressed him out. He could not believe it.
And then you got really mean and threw a rotary phone at him and said, "Use this."
Hey, I miss those rotary phones. And there's this classic joke that I think one of the
charming.
Yeah, it's fun. It's got some classic style to it. But then, hell, try dialing a number. You miss dial, you have to redial the whole thing again.
But you know what? It couldn't. It prevented you from making a quick decision call, an accidental speed dial, or if you really you had to really want to talk to somebody.
Good point.
Through that process. Yeah.
Yes, and you go back a little further, and you actually had operators, but that's it's getting too much. That's even before me. Rotary dials. No, I grew up with them when I was a kid. Well, one of the things. Let me step back a little bit because I really want you to. This is something that's fascinated me historically about the industry, and this is kind of the Don Sullivan Show has a very broad view of science and technology and computing, but I was around in the early '90s when it became clear that SAP had the arrogance, which it was, now it just seems natural, to effectively tell the world's biggest business organizations that they had to change their business processes to fit the software, as opposed to software being a tool you installed and performed certain tasks to automate stuff like what was on your desktop and so on. But SAP really believed, and obviously they were not only right, they executed this with total dominance. You remember that, Vas? And I would just love to have been the proverbial fly on the wall in some of these meetings. Now, I realize there's a cultural component to an SAP meeting that lends to a certain confidence, I suppose. But do you remember this? And was that as amazing as I remember it as a change in the culture of business and computing?
Yeah, well, what would happen? Their goal is to sell the business process. So they say, look, here's SAP. It can do all this sales order entry, logistics, and accounting in one big system. So if you just do follow the workflows as we provide it, it becomes a vanilla installation, and you just use it out of the box. But then customers
They told them you had to do it.
Yes. And then customers push back and go, well, that's not how I run a sales order entry, or that's not how I want to do an invoice. I don't want to do my financial transactions that way. And then SAP's environment, that create a development environment within their system to allow you to make changes. So what happened was SAP then created these transactions which allowed you to easily change the core system. And it was written in SAP's proprietary 4GL, which was called fourth generation language. It's called ABAP, similar to COBOL, for a language that was used a long time ago.
Was it non-structured?
Nice.
Yeah.
Was it non-structured? Really?
It's a 4GL, so it's like programming. It's a business level programming language that allowed you to create select statements, to run, create your own custom reports off tables. What SAP introduced back in the 90s was a system with all these business processes pre-configured and a development environment in that same system, which you can easily change the core or add your own customizations. And then what happened by the late 90s, these massive SAP implementation projects involved massive customizations. So it was great for the system SI business. SIs and developers would be recruited to projects to customize SAP. And that became the norm. So they became quite expensive. But because SAP software was the core application in the data center, the budget was there. But then they had to maintain all these developers to maintain all those customizations. But they were fine with that. And then what would happen every time you upgrades became a nightmare, because you upgrade the core SAP system, which SAP makes easier, but then you have to factor in all your customizations. So all these
and upgrade everyone individually.
Yep.
And you needed all the individual initial developers. Right. So they could easily build in their own job security for a while.
Right. And that was the case up until even 5 years ago. That was SAP Business Suite was built that way. The big enterprises were happy to have budgets to change it and customize it for their business. So even though SAP would say, please don't change the core SAP if you want a quick implementation, customers, enterprises still wanted to change it, and SAP were fine with that. They provided the tools to allow customers to do it. And now,
so this is true with Basis, but also the peripheral apps, all of them.
Yeah. Now what's happened, the new version of S/4HANA moving forward, they have this concept, keep the core clean. So what SAP is telling customers, as you now move to the cloud-based services, please they're trying to follow a strict guideline to tell customers don't change it. If you still need to make customizations, they offer an environment and a methodology where you can make the changes outside of the core SAP product. It's called an extension app. So that you have the option of then, it's not integrated tightly into SAP. It's still, it's the custom code resides, say, on a cloud native platform outside of SAP and makes API calls back to SAP. And the idea is when you upgrade SAP, your core is not changed. It's easier to upgrade. So that's the new thing from SAP. And they call that keep the core clean strategy.
I haven't heard that term. Yeah. It's good to know, though. So next
That's
time
the
I
new
hear it, I
thing.
can act smart.
Yeah. So whenever customers are now going to migrate off the legacy to S/4HANA in the cloud, part of that migration project will be about looking at your customizations and seeing if you can remove them. If you still need them, then there are new ways to develop customizations that minimize the impact of the core system.
What's the S4 stand for? I know, Hana, you gave us the acronym already, and it's
I think it's
somewhat ACID compliant.
Yeah.
In-memory relational database management system. Pretty close, but what's S4 stand for?
Well, R3 was the old system, ERP. I think it was referring to the third, that was generation 3. 4, I think, refers to the next generation of ERP. So it's the 4th generation, and it's based, and I might be wrong in that. That's what I think it is. It's the next generation of ERP based on in-memory HANA database. So,
but the S meaning it is the applications using the database, right?
Yes. S is probably it stands for SAP, I think. Yeah. The 4 is the next. It's referring to the next generation, and the ERP software is still based on ABAP, but some of the business processes are different. They've got new business processes, and a lot of that is taking advantage of in-memory data processing. The fact that everything's faster, you can run reports very quickly.
You need enormous amounts of RAM, which 5 years ago, say pre-COVID, since that's the way we think now, was seemed a little bit outlandish, but now it's almost trivial because everything is becoming so big, so fast, the processing, the memory, and the storage, right? So
plus they have some in-memory compression algorithms that you can take.
So speaking of all of that, one of the things that I missed 5 years ago with my belief in the forever nature of virtualization, that consolidation, as a result and a value proposition of virtualization was always going to be valuable. As it turns out, it's not nearly as much because the incredible processing power that exists right now, combined with the literally infinite amounts of data, and combined with the fact that people really don't care about using power. So we're going to, and there are different ways and we're going to have them on the Don Sullivan Show. We already have in regards to optimizing power usage and so on. And of course, all these mega data centers are going to have nuclear power plants built into them and so on. But it's my belief, Vas, that we're going to be seeing Stargate as well as 100 more up and down 2,000 miles of the east of the Rockies, from British Columbia down to the Mexican border, within about 10 years. And so the cartoonish term artificial intelligence, really meaning machine learning and the ability to iterate on literally infinite amounts of data, is going to become so ubiquitous that I wonder, and you can sort of add to this because this is obviously speculation, and I'm just interested in your opinion. And I'm a little bit out of the game because I've been, again, in exile for over a year. Is the cloud as a concept going to become passé and give way to the enormity of these data centers with the virtually infinite amounts of data resident within these Death Star-sized data centers? Vaz is a big Star Wars fan, so I had to throw that in there. I'll get back to my baseball analogies later. But these Death Star-sized data centers that will be able to process, trillions of processing events per unit time, that is, sort of asserting. Is SAP specifically, from your perspective, going to bypass at some point the very nature of the remote clouds? And again, are we just going to be doing everything, or the company's going to be doing this themselves with these mega Death Star-like data centers, do you think?
Well, what SAP will do, they'll leverage their hyperscalers. They're big in AI, so
AI is processing, not necessarily AI as the very basis for the host. I don't mean to overuse that word basis, but the fundamental infrastructure.
Yeah, the platform underneath it. What SAP will do is they will leverage the platforms provided to them from their hyperscalers. So as the hyperscalers build out their data centers, yeah, SAP is going to eat that up. SAP would be one of the big customers.
So if Facebook, Meta, or OpenAI, or whatever Musk does in a planetary size or whatever, decide they don't want to use hyperscalers. They want, and they have their Death Stars big enough to actually run, with 1 million GPUs circa 2030, which are 100 times faster than the ones we use right now. And they don't need the hyperscalers. And they run on their own internal 2 gigawatt nuclear power plants. Is SAP going to be able to adjust to that?
I don't think SAP's currently, as far as I know, SAP's not planning to do anything like that other than leverage the hyperscaler. That's
one of the reasons why I brought up the original SAP proclamation that, folks, you need to run your business like we tell you to. I have this feeling like they're going to be told that we're going to run our business internally again with our own internal data within these mega data centers, which again, Stargate's going to be the size of Texas Stadium.
Yeah.
With 300,000
but they'd still be
CPUs.
using, wouldn't they still, in that scenario, Don, wouldn't they, cloud, I mean, this is simplistic, but like cloud is just using somebody else's data center. If they're using something Musk builds, that wouldn't they technically still be using cloud technology? I mean,
well, they would be using cloud technology, but in-house as opposed to in the cloud. In other words, flying past the clouds.
Well, no.
You think they're going to build their own mega data center?
Okay. You think SAP will bring? That. Yeah, I'm not sure if SAP.
They're doing it now, Steve. That's what these places are. They're
yeah, but do you think every company out there, like JP Morgan or Mattel or whoever,
it could be recent experience. Yeah, it could be recent experience on my part, and I'm cynical in that way. But we're talking about the top 100 or 1,000 economic entities on Earth wanting to control everything that they do on their own.
So on that,
they care about cost too, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, but SAP wants control. If they feel they're not getting the control that they need from their partners in the hyperscaler business,
they could be a battle. That could be fun.
Yeah, and again, it's about if someone like Musk has his massive data center, and if he offers that as a service to third parties, then maybe SAP could use that. But then the question is control. How much
control? Yeah.
At the moment, that's exactly the question.
Yeah. So at the moment,
you want to hold the data. Yeah. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Musk can iterate on how to create new batteries and finally get to non-lithium batteries, and at the same time support flying off to Jupiter and whatever else is making him a decatrillionaire. But maybe he'll offer a peripheral service or maybe not. I mean, Facebook is very, very famous for literally doing everything on their own. I mean, Meta, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
And I can see
kind of
this.
Outliers, though. And I can see what you're saying, Don. Yeah. I mean, not every company is like Facebook or Amazon, though. So I think
I'm talking everything from the U.S. Air Force to General Motors to whoever. But I just asking. That's really all we're about, and that's I bring that up to try to create bookends between the original approach and paradigm SAP had to controlling the arrogance again, which was breathtaking and totally 100% correct back in the early 90s, to say you are going to have to run your business like we tell you to. I mean, if you can bracket yourself and put yourself back in to 1992 and be a salesperson for a software company walking into a Fortune 500 company and say, yeah, you know what, you're better off just changing all your business processes and doing what we tell you to do. For the most part, you're getting laughed out of the building, but then they're realizing they have to do it, or this going to cost, Vas just described in great eloquent detail, it's going to cost you enormous amounts for thousands of consulting hours over decades.
Yeah, and that did happen, though. Here, I'll let Vas speak, but all I know is this. Similar to the movie Dune, whoever controls the spice controls the universe. Whoever grabs the most of this data is going to have the controlling stake, in my
Hey,
opinion.
we got a lot of non-baseball analogies here. We're going to have to get back to core competency, Steve. But yeah, go ahead, Vas.
No, I think SAP is also, look, their main customers are in industries that are bound by governance and compliance. So even though they can start dictating things, dictating terms, they're still bound by like certain rules. If it's a customer of theirs, they've got a lot of government customers. Their government regulations stipulate how the data should be maintained and where it should be stored, like NS2. So SAP is still going to be bound by those compliance regulations.
So is SAP bigger now than it was 10 years ago in terms of market control?
Their market, well, they've always been one of the lead ERP vendors, and I think
Well, there were a lot of pretenders 20 years ago,
yeah,
right?
now they still are. They're still one of the dominant ones. I don't know the exact breakdown, but it's I think
who's second?
Second was I think Barn, and there was a Microsoft CRM Dynamics, Oracle. There was, I can't quite remember.
I mean Oracle always, right? But
yeah,
Oracle's a hodgepodge of things thrown together always.
Yeah,
as opposed to Bond, they tried to long time ago, 25 years ago, tried to actually be a direct competitor and didn't make it.
Yeah, it was.
Well, yeah, there's Oracle, there's Microsoft Dynamics, and then what? I mean, I guess Infor is in the mix, but
Infor, don't know them.
Yeah. I think Oracle. The ones I come across are Oracle, CRM, SAP, CRM Dynamics for Microsoft, Oracle ERP, SAP, and Barn.
Is Salesforce in this game, or are they just CRM?
They're CRM. They're not considered ERP, as far as I know. Yeah.
They put a 110-story building in the middle of San Francisco, and it's just CRM. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and they,
hey, can take you a long way.
I still think it's Oracle, SAP, and Microsoft are the top vendors, ERP.
So as we're getting closer here, I do, and because of my background in Oracle, that Oracle deadline is still 2027, and so that deadline of, you mentioned it already, but I just want to verify it, that the deadline to be on HANA is the end of 2027.
Yeah. The legacy ERP product needs to be migrated over to S/4HANA, which is only
it's a polite way of putting get off of Oracle. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. It also applies to these customers running on that we've got in the SMB SAP market, the SAP SMB market. A lot of customers running ERP on SQL Server, Microsoft. They're going to have to move to S/4HANA.
Okay, so it's not just Oracle.
Yeah,
it's any other database.
It's more than 50% of their revenue base is Oracle.
Well, yeah, Oracle's the one that's going to be would be most effective.
Oracle customers and
Oracle customers.
But the thing is, SAP has said that they want, they've put this hard line in 2027, but they also want to do right by their customers. So there are going to be like individual agreements between customers based on their size and needs.
Some exceptions.
Well, I remember, Steve, we didn't do them with you. We did it when I was at VMware and some of the survey studies we were doing. You remember the one we did? What's that group we did it with? Do you remember, Vas?
Oh, sorry.
Who runs the big, not the biggest, not Sapphire, but the other SAP events? Oh, remember.
SAP Insider.
Yes, SAP Insider.
Yeah, SAP Insider.
We did a bunch of surveys with them, and we saw an amazing factor amazing results that indicated that there were so many companies that had, this was 2 years ago, or I guess even more than that, in the middle of COVID, so maybe 5 years ago, we saw how few of them, customers of SAP, were even barely beginning the ideas of their migration.
And that's
kind of waiting it out. Yeah.
And that's got less and less. I mean, I think now we got about 40 to 50% of the SAP customer base are in the stages of planning or migrating, already done so to S/4HANA.
Interesting. So has Oracle clapped back in any significantly material way at SAP, like making proclamations like, well, you have to get off of this, or that doesn't really work that way?
No, because at the end of the day, SAP owns the business process, and Oracle is just the database. So from the Oracle
Oracle's
side,
just a database.
in that context,
in that scenario.
in that scenario.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're running Oracle ERP, Oracle has a huge amount of influence because you're running your business through Oracle ERP business software. So
how hard is it to move from SAP to Oracle ERP?
they're big migration. That's a huge migration project. That's a big.
Well, it's
project.
huge.
Yeah, I'm assuming Oracle would like that. You know, in this scenario we're discussing.
But
just move on to Oracle ERP.
Yeah, they're huge, and they
one of my favorite points about that, Stephen, is again I wrote my thesis on this in '96. That, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and this has changed, but HANA being based or written by the Sybase developers primarily uses Transact SQL, whereas Oracle apps use PL SQL, and they really don't translate.
Yeah.
No, so is it a difficult migration? I'm assuming it's not a walk in the park.
Yeah, it's a big migration. It's a huge amount of effort, and it would typically customers would not consider that if they're already big enough to run SAP. Their focus is on keeping legacy and deciding how they need to migrate to the new software that SAP is offering in the cloud.
You've got processes built around it, and skills, and probably tech debt, customizations, as you pointed out before. So that would be a massive endeavor. You'd be throwing a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, at this moment, I've seen there's more greenfield. There might be like small, medium customers using homegrown ERP systems that decided to go for a greenfield implementation of SAP or maybe Oracle ERP. But because I'm sure both Oracle and SAP provide kind of ways to expedite the greenfield implementations of their software for a new customer.
Always easier if you're starting from scratch, but that doesn't happen all that often in the enterprise world. Yeah.
But then there's still data migration issues. You have to get data off the old system to the new.
So Vas, what's next for SAP?
Next, I think. Well, there's still part of their strategy is moving their customers to the cloud. And as we mentioned before, they've only got, they're 40-50% done. They've still got a huge chunk of their customer base is still running legacy on-prem. For them, they have to figure out a strategy for those customers, offer them something like concessions or offer them a path to the cloud. So I think they're focusing on that. In terms of new functionality, the new thing for them is just injecting more AI into SAP's cloud-based services, because that's, if they can put in more AI that streamlines the business, makes it more efficient, they can offer that as the new functionality to entice customers to
customer service, right?
I mean, for example, they're saying now that you can have, using AI, you can predict supply chain. So you have
there you go. The analytics. That's what I like.
You have an AI-based supply chain where you get a delivery date for a product, and suddenly the weather changes, and immediately AI will predict that, okay, it's going to rain, that truck's going to be longer, and immediately the customer gets an updated, realistic delivery date.
That's cool.
Now,
that is cool.
Now, if there are companies out there going to embrace that, and that becomes the new norm, and customers saying, hey, I need accurate delivery dates now, that's because that's what the small customers might have to then decide they need to embrace that same technology to keep up, to compete.
Yeah, because we get spoiled customers with certain things. The speed at which you can get information from Google, being kept in the loop throughout an entire process, such as shipping and knowing where the package is.
I think even more than that, the ability to
pretty good about that. Yeah,
to potentially reroute intelligently, to make decisions based on
action.
Infinite number. Take action. Exactly. That's a better way of putting it. Based on many
actionable
factors.
Insights, Don. Actionable insights.
That's a great name for a company we should come up with.
That is a good name.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Add it to the list.
So Vas, we're gonna have you on if you haven't been turned on by our Jersey politeness here.
Turned off.
Too much. We're turned off. Yeah, turned off. I should say. I see. That's one of the things that you could be turned off by me.
I don't know if that would be a turn on for too many. You go down to the Jersey Shore, it could be a turn on.
Yeah, you never know. In fact, it probably would be. But
yeah,
if you want to come back on, Vas, we'd love to have you on to talk about this subject, and specifically this subject, the analytics part. This is a favorite of mine. The analytics aspects as we move forward, say 3, 6, 9 months or to a year. If you find specific examples that are just really cool and compelling, we'd love to hear about it. So we invite you back on to talk about that.
Yeah,
but we're also going to ask you to come back on to talk about your personal passion, which is how designer and really high-end toys, figurines are made, particularly
the collection.
Yeah, the collection. That's geeky, but then that's people like to collect.
This is science, technology, computing. We have an entire series on timepieces here, Vas. So
that would be interesting. Yeah.
And we want you to be our expert on particularly Legos and toys.
Okay, sure.
Fascinating stories.
We did an episode on pickleball. We've done all sorts of episodes. We can certainly talk about toys and collector type items.
Yep. So
that'd be great.
Talk about everything.
That would be good.
Here on the Don Sullivan Show. So did we miss anything, Vas? Anything else you're going to add?
No, we captured everything. That was it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, you want to take us out, and then I will finish up?
My pleasure, Vas. It was a pleasure having you on with us today. And we'll try and get you back on soon to dive into those other topics.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on. It was fun. Thank you.
And folks, again, I will admonish you, remind you, cajole you, and help you understand that no matter where we are, if we're talking about SAP, if we're talking about Intel, if we're talking about anything computing, if we're watching or listening to me have a surgery, there are more coming. If the next few weeks I'm going to be climbing the biggest mountain in Africa, not just the biggest mountains in Colorado, and we're going to have shows on them, but it doesn't matter, because everywhere we go, one philosophy, one paradigm, the approach of life applies, and that is that all at-bats are situational. So see you till next time.